Hi everyone. The Coiled platform tries to make it easy to process a large volume of data in your cloud account safely and effectively. Coiled was originally designed to deploy the popular open source Dask framework for parallel computing, but today it can be used for all sorts of different things. And as a result, there are all sorts of different videos that you can watch on YouTube like this one, which will help introduce you to those different topics. This video in particular is designed to give you a very broad and shallow overview over all of those things. So in this video, we're going to cover a few topics. We're going to look at some of those user experiences, some of the things that you can play with. Dask, serverless functions, CLI jobs, notebooks. We'll then, after seeing things from a user perspective, jump to sort of the management view, what we can look at looking over time, looking at metrics, looking at cost controls, that sort of thing. We'll then jump into how Coiled interacts with your cloud, so it can be both easy and secure to operate your cloud very comfortably. Then we'll look at costs and pricing, and then finally setup. So I'm going to jump straight into some user experience things and ways in which you can use the Coiled platform. Excuse me. So the first and simplest way to use Coiled is just to submit simple jobs. So I'm going to run a simple job on my laptop, hello world. I'm going to print hello world, the echo program. This is not using Coiled, it's just running on my machine. But if I wanted to run that on a VM, I could type in Coiled run echo hello world. And what that does is that's going to create a VM for me in my cloud. It will make sure that VM has all the right software environment that I'm running locally. It will then run the echo hello world program and then shut down that VM. That'll all happen in about a minute. That's about how long it takes to get a VM in the cloud. And it'll cost less than a cent because VMs in the cloud are pretty cheap today. I'm not going to wait for that minute. I've already sort of run that here. So that's what it looks like. But this is a super simple program. You could put in your own code there. Maybe you're training a PyTorch model and you could use a G5 X large instance there. And maybe you want to run that in Frankfurt. Right, great. You can specify all the things you need to in order to run your cloud infrastructure, but in a way that's more easy to use than the AWS console or the GCP console. So, way to use Coiled, option 1, run a script. Option 2, serverless functions. So this is a script that I might run on my laptop or in a Jupyter Notebook or in my Python session, and it's running locally. It's running on my machine, except for this one function, which I have decorated with this Coiled run decorator saying, hey, look, I actually need this function to run somewhere in US East 1 with at least 8 gigabytes of memory, and keep it around for 10 minutes. I might reuse this function several times. So this is maybe more similar to a system like AWS Lambda or AWS Batch or Google Cloud Run, Google Cloud Functions. And it allows you to easily offload some of your functions into the cloud while keeping most of your workflow locally. Coiled, again, makes it pretty easy to spin up, replicate your local environment, run code, and then spin down those instances in the cloud in a way that's comfortable and familiar to Python developers. Let's look at a third option. So let's look at Dask. This is actually the original use case of Coiled. To actually make this more complicated, let's ask for some more things. So I'm going to ask for a Dask cluster. Let's get some ARM instances in here too. Let's use Spot if it's available. And if it's not, we're going to fall back to on-demand. Let's look for machines with at least maybe 64 gigabytes of RAM. Great, so I specified my configuration, asking for 30 machines of this configuration, and we're going to see how Coiled gives us a Dask cluster with that same infrastructure. So first, it is scraping my local laptop, my MacBook Pro in this case, for all the Conda packages I have, all the pip packages I have. I actually have some locally edited packages that are some scripts in this directory or some development packages I'm working on locally. And it's shipping up a specification of all of those to the cloud. So I don't have to build anything like a Docker image. Next, it's provisioning the right instance type for me based on what's available in my region. And then it's provisioning those machines, it's booting those machines, it will start downloading software onto those machines, all in about a minute or two. So I'm actually not going to wait for this. I'm going to move on. But again, lots of other videos in the YouTube channel have lots of demonstrations of using Dask with pandas, with NumPy, with scikit-learn, with Xarray, with Prefect, with PyTorch, with Dagster, with Airflow, XGBoost. There are lots and lots of different ways when people use Dask to run at scale. So this is looking at reading Parquet data, for example. That's this notebook. Another notebook we have does hyperparameter tuning on a big PyTorch model. I don't really know what this is, but there's some PyTorch model here. You might also look at doing geospatial data. A lot of people use Dask and Coiled with geospatial. So here's a 1/4 petabyte data from NOAA. I don't know what it is. But again, there's lots of great examples and lots of great libraries you can use Dask with. I'll just quickly go to PyPI and type in Dask, and there are 744 different Dask projects out there. Reading and writing from Snowflake, Avro. I don't really know what Dirac is, but there's lots of things that are here. So the last thing I'll briefly mention is notebooks. So I'm showing you all the ways in which you can use Coiled to do things. One thing people often ask about is they want to run a Jupyter Lab session, but they want to run that with a GPU or with a big machine. And so we have Coiled Notebook Start, and you can ask for a VM type of a P4DN 24x large, some massive machine, in whatever region you want. We find that these are more common, for example, in US West 1 or US West 2. And you might also want to turn on something like active file synchronization. So all of my notebooks from my local directory, we replicated remotely, and that changes will be synchronized between the two. So lots of fun things you can do with Coiled. In general, Coiled makes it really easy to manage machines in the cloud and to give those machines the same kind of environment that you have locally on your computer. And there's lots of things that you can do with that combination of tools. So let's go on a little bit. I showed you very briefly the ways in which you can use Dask and Coiled to do different things. And again, for more complex examples, go to the YouTube channel. There's a bunch of cool examples that you can take a look at. Let's take a look now at what Coiled looks like from sort of a high-level management perspective. So I can take a look at all the jobs that have been run recently inside of my account, and I can look at things like how much did they cost me. This one cost 25 cents from my colleague James Bourbeau. This one down here cost 28 cents from my colleague Guido. I'm noticing some things are wrong with this workflow. It's undergoing some memory pressure. It had to write to disk. There were some idle workers. So I can go and I can take a look at what was going on inside of that workflow. And I can see a combination of the kinds of activities that were being run at different times, and also the code that was being run and metrics. So I can say, ooh, look, it looks like during this period, we started running into memory issues. Great. What was happening in logs during that time? And this cross-referencing between metrics and code and logs ends up helping us often, and you, diagnose and tune and optimize a lot of the workloads of you or your colleagues. It also helps you do things like minimize and manage costs. Right, so I can see the costs of different people in my team as they're using the platform over time. And I can start to constrain or reduce those costs, right? So I'm seeing here, for example, my colleague in yellow here, Florian Yetta, is spending a lot of money. Maybe I'm concerned about that. We can go and constrain how much he can spend. The units here are on CPU hours, so let's limit him to just 2,000 CPU hours concurrently, and a maximum of just 200,000 CPU hours per month. A CPU hour costs on the cloud usually about 5 cents or so. We can make that lower by using technologies like Spot or ARM, but 200,000 CPU hours, maybe that's like 10 grand, something like that. It's a reasonable amount of money. Okay, what else can we do? So let's go and take a look at what we're talking about today. So user experience, check. Management overview, check. Architecture and data privacy. So a big question we get asked often is, does Coiled run in my account or in Coiled's? In the customer's account or in sort of some centralized control plane? The answer to that question is that Coiled runs all of computation inside of your cloud account. We do this for cost reasons and privacy reasons. So the way Coiled works is that your laptop or your machine where you run Python talks to Coiled, and it asks Coiled a set of infrastructure. Coiled then sets up that infrastructure inside of your cloud account, and it connects you securely to that infrastructure. Coiled then leaves the conversation as you process your data securely. You never have to give Coiled access to your data, but you do have to give Coiled access to things like creating and destroying EC2 instances, or managing log groups, or downloading from some Docker container registry if you have one that you want to use. But you never give Coiled access to your Amazon or GCP data access credentials, and that's really important. If you want to learn more about this, you go to the top here to pricing and security. There's a great document here about how we work and exactly the permissions that we need to run. What we find is that folks are often comfortable with that permission of giving us access to give us EC2 access, but not S3 or Snowflake or other data access permissions. The dance that we do there is pretty good. Let's go and take a look at costs briefly. So the way Coiled works is we charge a surcharge on top of your cloud provider. So you still have to pay your cloud. You're running all your computations inside of your cloud account. We're just helping you manage that computation much more efficiently. We then charge on top of that an extra 5 cents per CPU hour nominally. This is similar to how other services like SageMaker or Databricks work. They manage your cloud for you and charge a little bit on top. Notably, however, Coiled, we don't charge for your first 10,000 CPU hours per month. That's a lot of computation. If you're doing things normally on the cloud, that's about $500. And honestly, we just don't want to even think about our commercial relationship with you until you've reached that sort of $1,000 per month level. That's when we start thinking of you as a customer. Until then, please use the platform, have a good time, get hooked on it, have a great time. We'll start squeezing you for money later. Notably also, when people do get above that sort of, thousands of dollars per month level, they tend to negotiate for a smaller per CPU hour cost. We're happy to negotiate on pricing. What we find is that folks, when they do get to the commercial level, they're saving so much time and their cloud build is so much smaller because they're so much more efficient that they usually don't care that much. They usually enjoy the experience quite a bit. If you want to learn more, there's a great document on build versus buy, which goes through some situations about doing this yourself versus using us. And what I think you're going to find is that you're going to spend way less time managing cloud and that your time costs thousands of dollars per week. We're usually a pretty good bet. Finally, a lot of people ask, is it hard to set up? Do I need to know the cloud well? The answer is usually no. You are going to need to have cloud credentials. If you don't have those, someone else in your organization probably does. If you do have cloud credentials, it is easy to set up Coiled. So if you pip install Coiled or conda install Coiled, it works just fine. Then it comes with a lovely setup command. So you can set up Coiled in AWS or with GCP to connect to either account. I'm going to choose AWS for right now. And this command will just walk you through the setup process. We will inspect your local credentials. We'll use those credentials to grant us an IAM role that can do things like create and destroy EC2 instances. And then we'll grant us that role. If I were to press enter right now, it would do all the setup process for me. It's easy to use. Again, there are more videos that go into all of this in much more depth. There's a whole setup video that goes into all the different things that might go wrong when trying to set up. But I think that's it. That was like a quick summary of Coiled. It's a great platform. It is super easy to use. It is easy to get set up. It is mostly free until it's not. What I recommend is if you're interested, either let's have a chat. So maybe you found this video, you're actually on this page, request a demo. Put in some information. I love the chat. hear more about what you're running into, maybe we can point you down a good direction. Or if you don't like humans, I totally understand. I don't like humans that much either. Go to our YouTube channel, and there's lots of videos like this one, but better, that go into more depth of different applications and different features that might be of interest to you. So thanks. Hopefully that was helpful, and hope you enjoy the product. Cheers.